Hello to all of you in the audience. I won't say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening because in the virtual world, time doesn't mean a lot. But you'll see a little bit even of that concept in this presentation. I'm Michael Cowgill, president of GAU, Georgian American University. We're recording here in GeoLab, the IT think tank that we have integrated within the university. I'm going to talk about communications in the digital age. And you're going to see in this presentation, which I've given many different times in different venues, about how do things change in the digital world, or are many things the same with regards to communication. This is all part of a project that GAU's doing called GAU for the Future. And so we have a different series of lectures by many of the different professors within GAU on different subjects that we hope will be of interest to you. So let's start. I'll give you a little bit of an outline, what we're going to talk about. What is communications? With whom and to where? When and why? What and how do we tailor our communications? We'll talk about some specific things with resumes or CVs, presentations, a summary, and then I'm going to give you some interesting etiquette examples that deal with communication, and you can see how things have not changed from many years ago even to now. When we talk about communications, some people say, you don't need to do any plans, you don't need to do any presentations, you don't need to talk about people's expectations. Well, when you have those, you say, well, then you don't have disappointments. But that is not possible in today's world. People expect you to have plans. People, even if things change as rapidly as they're changing in the world and as rapidly as they change here in Georgia, then you need to plan. I have a saying that I take in a lot of my courses called the Cowgillism, which is business like life is all about managing expectations. And we'll come back to that quote in just a minute. Communications comes from the Latin word meaning to make common, to have a common understanding between whoever is the presenter and to you, the audience, what you're understanding and receiving. You need to understand that when you're communicating, expect to be misunderstood. Right? Expect to misunderstand. As you as an audience, you will misunderstand me. And I know that you will have a misunderstanding of the things that I tell you. Who are we talking about in this communications? You? You realize that you communicate with yourself. Okay? You do your own self-evaluation. You realize that you have filters based on your life, based on your education, based on lots of things. You have built-in prejudices and biases based on age, based on your education, based on your life experiences, what you have gone through. When you communicate, what's the least important is yourself. Me as a presenter, what I have to make sure is that you as an audience, this thing works the same in a classroom, the lecturer. What's important is what you, the audience, understand. Again, that's back to the same concept. When we talk about communications, meaning to make common. I'll give you an example. Haven't you been in a situation with other people, even a one-on-one conversation, the other person just doesn't understand? So what do? You repeat it, and you talk even louder, and you see maybe even the more loud you become, that will make them understand. That doesn't get it. Let me give you a very good hint. If you find yourself in that situation, it can be with friends, it can be with your spouse, your partner, it can be with anyone, even your parents, is that rather than keep repeating something, ask them, tell me what you understood. Don't let me repeat it. You tell me in your own words how you understood what it was that the other person was saying. Then you have an idea on how you can try to work through these distortions, filters, biases, and get and understand what you have to explain in a different way. When your basis of your communications is evaluating your audience. That's why I ask Anano a lot about who is the audience for this particular presentation, because I want it to be relevant to your situation in life. What are the demographics of the audience? Again, what are their age? What are their education level? Male, female, or whatever. Cultural characteristics. Language. This is going to be translated, I know, into Georgian as well. So I'm giving it in English. There will be a distortion coming even from the translation from English to Georgian. And also, basis of communications is the nonverbal. I'm not talking about things like when you're hand signals, or when you actually speak for the deaf. One of the reasons I speak a few languages, Georgian the least, even though I've been here the longest, but I tend to understand a lot of what I hear in a conversation because maybe 50% of it's actual language. The other 50% is context. What's surrounding? What is this? What's the emotions going on with other people? So again, the nonverbal aspects of communication can be very important. Where? As I said, internally, to yourself, notes, calendar. I mean, we're sending notes to ourselves all the time. We're putting things in a calendar. Internal to organizations, are you communicating with management, with staff, with employees, including the informal grapevine. Georgia is known to be masters of the informal grapevine. Do you know what that is? A grapevine has, think about it, we're a country of vineyards and grapes and all that. Think of how the vines go out and going out to various, even to the various grapes. So how does the communications channel happen? Internal organizations, even external to organizations, the grapevine goes out very, very well. We say here sometimes rumors, but Chorikana is part of the informal grapevine, okay? So that happens. It's how we communicate with each other. We even here in Georgia, the rumors go out faster than you'll ever find anyplace else with regards to even the news. So that happens. So realize that when you're in a communications situation, that will be a form of a channel of communications that works. Your family and friends, how we communicate. External, your clients, your customers, the shareholders, the government and regulatory entities. You deal with the press. I mean, many times in all the projects or the organizations, you talk to the press. One thing you learn about talking to the press is keep your whatever you say short. Make sure, because they will take sound bites, and you want them to take the right sound bites that they use in a particular interview. Different associations, and of course the public at large. When I first came to Georgia, I was working for the Georgian government on getting the pipelines built. There were a lot of times when we had to talk to the public about what these projects were about. What was the pipeline about? What were the impacts, society, both social and environmental impacts, to the public? When you develop your communications and your strategy, you have to also understand how urgent is this message. So when does this message have to go out? How long does it take you to prepare the message? Can it be a long presentation? Does it have to be something very short? How is the delivery mechanism to the audience? When does the audience hear it? You have to assimilate. What does the audience have to do to understand what this message, what this communications is all about? Then also the timing aspect about results. And I'll give you some examples here in a minute. What action do we want? What action do I want you, the audience, to take? Do I need feedback? Is there a feedback loop? Do I need to understand from the audience what they are understanding and whether they have comments or not? Why? Why communications? How important is the message? Is it something that is just information? Is it instructions that then you need to do something? Am I requesting you, the audience, to go out and do something based on what you hear me say? The complexity. How complex is this subject? I hope this isn't too complex a subject. I wanted to make this something that everyone understands and everyone deals with. But there are some very complex situations. You know, particularly when you get into even STEM areas about engineering, weather, climate change, these all can be very, very complex subjects. How intense? What kind of emotional content should there be a part of this presentation? That also goes back to what is the audience understanding of a particular subject. That's why we want to know the demographics of the particular audience. Again, I mentioned before, does it require feedback? Does it require recording, formal record of what you're saying? So what and how do we communicate? Most of our communication happens one-on-one, but it's still a form of communication. One of the most the examples of one-on-one conversation, interviews. Now, granted, sometimes if you're interviewing for a job, will have multiple people at one point that are actually interviewing and finding out. But interviews, look at the different kinds of interviews that we have here. Performance interview, reprimand interview, have you done something wrong? Grievance interview, has somebody complained about something that you have done? Counseling, do you need some kind of change even within the organization? And the one that we're most familiar with is selection interview, when you actually interview for a job. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later with regards to CVs and resumes. Telephone conversation, with smartphones and we're everywhere. So when I say telephone conversation, I mean also talking, but I also mean text. Right? And we text all the time now, and we find texting much more efficient because people can be talking to 3 or 4 different people at one time. One thing that I want you to take away from this is that, and I teach the students, is that if you call someone, not text them, if you call them, first thing you do is ask, is this a good time to talk? Because what you don't want the person on the other end of the phone to say, I can't talk right now. Because one, they've interrupted whatever they're doing. One, they've also shown something a little bit negative to you, the initial caller. So just first thing, say, is this a good time to call? They'll say yes or no. Or yes, I'm fine. No, please call me, or I'll call you back in whatever time frame. Voicemail, we used to use it a lot. We don't use voicemail as much as we do anymore because we do have the ability to record our voice on a message as well as all the voice and the text that we have. So these are things that have changed a bit. Some other acceptable ground rules. Social media, email and social media has become the norm. One thing I want you to realize that you need to understand when you're posting is that whatever it is you're posting, somebody else's text, somebody else's photo, do you have permission to post that? Ask. Ask somebody else. Most of the time they don't have a problem, but sometimes they do. And rather than having to take it down later, it's good to know that completely up front. One of the ways with internal to an organization, we send memos more than anything. Nothing's not as much formal. We don't tend to use, because we want to have some record, right? And you don't want to have to go to, your various texts and various social media to get the records of that. We still use letters in a formal way. We don't deliver them the same way. We don't usually send letters by post anymore. We just attach it to an email. I just had a situation a couple of weeks ago when I sent to various ambassadors. It was all the same letter, but we sent it by email rather than by anything by post. When you communicate via a letter, there are a couple of ways of structuring the letter. Do you put, and I use this also the same way when I teach presentation skills, the big idea a little later, you kind of build up in the letter to something, or do you put the big idea first, and then you go and explain why that big idea was there? A very important situation, both on letters, but also on emails, is the CC. Right? The CC came from, it's an old term from carbon copy, which we don't use anymore, but that's where the CC came from, is do you carbon copy someone? CC is used for lots of reasons. One, you just want to make other people in the loop, in the communications loop, but it's also there to give your letter or to give your email clout. You know what that means? Give it more importance. So if you're sending to someone and you want to make sure someone higher up, their boss or their boss's boss, know that you've sent it and will make sure that it's important enough that they will make sure that you get a reply from the person to whom you sent it, then that's what I mean, we give it clout. We give it importance by to whom you CC. Report formats, we do reports in every possible situation, whether you're in any kind of organization, both NGOs or for-profit or the government. You can have a short report or you can have a much longer formal report. Business cards. Business cards are also a way of communicating. I'm working with the GeoLab people right now on a new app to try to get rid of environmentally insensitive paper-using business cards. Something we can do mobile to mobile. Also, even these days, even with the pandemic, you want to minimize what you're touching. So they're working on an app that you can just touch screens or get screens close, and business card information will pass between the two. So something that, we're working on here. And presentations, same as reports, we do them for, this is a presentation. I call it a lecture, but it's a presentation to you. We talk about ways of measuring communication, and this is the efficiency. How much does it cost to deliver? For example, this, we have a cost for recording, we have a cost for editing, we're translating. Social media doesn't have as much cost, but there is a cost. And then the number of people that we're reaching by this particular one. Another way of measuring is the effectiveness of communication. It's easier to think of an example of here. So in an election campaign, we're getting ready to come up to local elections in Georgia. So did this message reach the intended audience? Did the audience understand whatever the political message is? Was it remembered for some period of time and used when appropriate? So again, think about, someone's running for office. In the local election, someone's running for mayor, let's say of Tbilisi, right? Did it reach the voters in Tbilisi? Did the voters understand the message, what the mayor wants to do, what a mayor that's running against the incumbent wants to change? Did the people remember it up until the time of the election, and then did they vote for how you wanted them to vote based on the presentation that was given? We all know about resumes, CVs. This is also a marketing tool because you're selling yourself. It's a presentation of you and of your skills. When you provide a cover letter to go along with your CV, keep it short. You could still highlight the relevant skills that are required when you've seen the job description. List in this your attachments, which also should include both your CV, but the application as well. Contact information, you want them to make it easy how to contact you. The application that's come, if possible, type it. Right? Don't make the people on the other end try to read your writing or your printing. So if you can ask for electronic copy of the application, do, and then type it there. The only thing that should be handwritten is your signature on the application, and always be sure to sign. Most important section usually in these applications, type it something in your own words. They'll look at that very, very closely. Resume package, the CV, we call it here CV. In the Western world, we tend to use more of the word resume. In general, when you don't have a lot of things to put down, maximum 2 pages. Unfortunately, I can't do that after 45 years of being in my resume or CV is, and also is in the EU format, so it goes into many pages. But one thing that's kind of changed is that now you have a cover letter, you know what's important. Go through your CV or your resume and highlight those things that apply directly to what it is that's being asked for in this job. Again, name and contact information. Sometimes your career goals should be added. In your education, always the most recent first. The work experience, always the most recent first, and then go back down chronologically. A summary of your work experience depends on how much information you have. If lots, then yes, summarize. Specific jobs and projects are important, but also important the accomplishments, things that you actually accomplished. Put money saved, or things that that people can actually quantify. Other skills, other languages that you have, computer skills, but anymore you don't put down Microsoft Word or Excel, those kinds of things. If you have advanced computer skills, put them in. Everyone expects now that you know Word and you know Excel and you're internet savvy and that you can do that. So change how you think about and what people are looking at with regards to skills. Honors, awards, publications, hobbies, volunteering, these are all important. People want to know that you have other interests other than just your work and what you've done education-wise. Volunteering, I tell many students what you've done from a volunteer standpoint, what your hobbies are. People want to know. They want to have well-rounded people in their employment. References, sometimes, but usually only if asked on your CV. Okay. Another specific area is presentation skills. Because we all make presentations, whether we know it or not. When you have an introduction to your presentation, you have one goal, and that is to get the audience's attention. Get the audience's attention, whatever way. We have lots of different ways you can do it. You can do it with humor, you can do jokes, you can do personal stories, you can use props, something to get their attention, but there's a way to get the attention because you want the audience from the very beginning to want to hear what your presentation is. You want to draw them into this. What you end up with in a presentation is you want the audience to remember 3 to 5 things. 3 is better, maximum 4 or 5. That's what you want the audience to take away. And you jump down there, look at the summary. You want to repeat the main points, but then also, do you have any requests or timing of those? Part of presentation skills is about overcoming nervousness. How nervous are you as a presenter? Do your knees shake? If you're presenting, if you shake, don't hold your notes because it'll be like this, all right? You'll see the notes like this. If you're behind a lectern, sometimes that's a good way if you're nervous. Okay, I realize that you'll probably get white knuckles, right, on the lectern by doing this, but realize you've got to overcome that nervousness. It comes with experience. That's the only thing, is that the more you do it, the more you'll be able to lose that being nervous. Pick someone in the audience. Pick and watch them. Watch their reactions. Okay? Every once in a while move, but this will also help you overcome nerves if you feel that you've got a rapport, some connection with someone in the audience. Question and answers. You control that as a presenter. Remember the rule in a presentation, make sure that the questions are shorter than the answers. We've all been in big presentations where somebody stands up and they want the audience to know how much they know about the subject. They're not the presenter. They feel a little bit envious of the presenter, and so they will go on and on. So again, the rule of thumb that I always tell at the beginning of a Q&A, please make the answers short. Make the questions short and make the answers much longer. In person or remotely, in the last year and a half, everything has been done remotely. We're finally getting back to where we'll have more presentations and things that'll be in person, but we'll always have some kind of hybrid situation. So the kinds of things that you need to worry about when you're in person, you also have those remotely, but now you have another dimension, is that how well is the audience understanding you when you're not interacting with them like this? Make sure you're communicating. Save everybody's time. If you don't need to, don't do it. Make sure that the communication is necessary. Know your audience, we say, because we want to make sure that we have a common understanding. Select the best medium, where we're talking about something written or something done on a smartphone, or we're talking about something over social media. Make sure the appropriate medium is used. Be as brief as possible. Again, from a business standpoint, I said when you talk to the press, you keep your answers very short because you want the sound bites that they use, that you had control over what it was that you're telling. So again, be aware of other people's time and time limits. And again, remember this Cowgillism of managing expectations. You have your own expectations, not just the other people, but manage those expectations. I want to show you a few examples here, and I think they're interesting. You'll see from the photos how long ago these were done. And this came, unspoken social etiquette rules everyone should follow. Make the World was the title, a nicer place with these simple gestures. So you can see where this came from Prevention on yahoo.com. Look at this. It still applies, and even more so today. If somebody calls you and you're on your smartphone, step outside. Right? Step outside the room, get up from the table, go somewhere else. Don't bother everyone else with this conversation. Doesn't mean that it may not be important. I tell students in my class, if it's important enough for you to interrupt class, then it's important enough for you to go outside and to talk. So this is something also that we need to remember. Learn people's names when you're in events. They talk about the people, all of you know Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone was even here a few years back. Sharon Stone is known for working the room. She will find out whoever's at the room. She will talk to everybody. It's one of her big skill sets, is being able to go and talk to everyone, make them feel important, know their names, learn their names. That's why we make sure that at all events, even in the American Chamber of Commerce, we have name tags for everybody. We're growing so great, we can't keep all the names in our heads. And so make sure that you know people's names. Handwritten thank you notes. They're almost a relic, but they're still so important. Even President Bush Jr., and even his father, wrote handwritten notes. So I can tell you that when I get a handwritten note from someone, it still happens, you know that they took the time. They took the time to handwrite it themselves, that they made the effort to send something to you. So this is something that you can still use and it will still make a difference. Huh? Yeah. Put your phone away during a meal. Okay, right? Put it away if you can. I understand there are times when you have something and you know that there's an important call coming. But you know what? It's also nice to tell your people, listen, I know I've got a call that's coming in. I'm sorry it's going to interrupt us, but again, manage their expectations about what happens during that. Always RSVP. We have a problem with that sometimes here in Georgia about replying or whether you're going to come to something or whether you're not. But if you get an invitation to something, RSVP whether it's positive or negative, you're going to come or not. Oh, I just mentioned this before. Ask before posting, okay? Again, realize some people have privacy issues. Some people don't want their photos out. Some people don't want their text out. So always ask before you post something if it's not completely of your own. Keep the noise down at work. I mean, we all know what goes on at the workplace, and people sometimes, I have a loud voice, I know. So I keep my door shut a lot of times in the office because I know people can hear my voice. So try to respect other people's sound. Shake hands. Shake hands firmly. I don't know how many students I've told, because sometimes you get this limp little, okay, we call it a dish rag type of, I'm talking about the guys and the girls, all right? This isn't just for the men, it's for the women as well. Shake with confidence. It gives the other person a sense that you're not strong, you're not trying to grip them and take them down to their knees. It's just a firm, confident handshake, and it makes a difference in how people perceive you. We've all received a text or an email that made us mad, right? It made us feel ashamed, embarrassed, something, or just mad. And we immediately want to respond. We want to get it off our chest. We want to get this out. Don't. Wait till in the morning. Sleep on it. I can assure you things look much different in the morning than they do when you receive it the day before. So think about it, and your attitude most likely will change. Doesn't mean you won't respond, but how you respond is different. Learn to say you're sorry. Well, I think the first terms I learned in Georgian were mapatet, kalbatano, and bodishit, all right? So I learned to say you're sorry. Learn to say that. It takes a bigger person to sometimes say you're sorry, but it, again, will always be appreciated. I told you about Sharon Stone, not just knowing names. Greet everyone when you come into a room. It will make a difference. Same way, RSVP, return calls, return phone calls, return texts, okay? Because if people thought it was important enough to call you, you need to be important enough to return their calls. With that, that's the end. I hope I gave you some good tips, some things that you can use in your everyday communications. With that, thank you very much. Thanks to Gal for doing this lecture series. And any questions? I'm sure you can get back to Gal through Gal's social media pages and I'm glad to answer any questions that you have virtually. Thank you. Goodbye.